Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. This podcast is for and about women of colour and our relationship with nature. Hosted by me, Sheree Mack. The Earth, Sea, Love podcast is committed to exploring the experiences of women of colour with Mother Nature. We want to provide spaces where the hidden voices in the environmental and conservation conversations can explore their relationship with the natural world. Inspired by our time spent outdoors, we amplify the voices of women of colour, our stories, our conversations, interviews, photography, writing, and artwork. We'll be exploring our legacies, histories, and memories which have had an influence and effect upon how we perceive ourselves within the natural world and within the environmental and climate justice movements. The Earth, Sea, Love podcast is a space for women, feminine, and non-binary people who are Black, Indigenous, people of colour to explore their relationship with nature. Thank you. Hello, and welcome back to the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. It is I, Dr Sheree Mack, your host of the podcast, and I am so pleased to be back with you so soon. Well, I did say I was planning on dropping an episode from the podcast every 2 weeks, and this is it, the next fortnight. And this is episode 65. Whoop, whoop. We are doing it. We are still doing it. From our humble beginnings, 13th of July, 2020, to now we're in June. Well, nearly in June. I'm recording this a little bit before this episode drops, obviously. But yeah, we are on the cusp, aren't we? We're in that in between. Spring is coming to an end, summer is knocking at its door, and I've been noticing a shift in the light, a shift in the temperatures, a shift in my mood, a shift in my energy, and I welcome it. I'm ready. I've been filling up my pot, taking in new ideas, being inspired, learning new things. I love learning new things. I am the definition of a lifelong learner. I love having that beginner's mind, bringing it to new things, but then also old things, because, we can never know enough, I think. And then I'm not saying that I'm greedy and I'm going from one thing to the next thing and just gobbling up all this knowledge and thinking I'm all wise and all that. It's just I have this childlike curiosity and wonder. I was brought up to not ask questions. I was very fond on asking why. And if I asked why to my dad, I got beats because I wasn't supposed to ask why. Obviously, those beats didn't work, or I defied or pushed against them, because I've always asked questions. I've always loved asking questions, listening to the answers, and then letting it go in, percolate, and then coming back with some more questions. Yeah. So I'm so leaning into this in-between season, this space and realm of possibilities and potential. So yeah, so we're back, yay, and we are bringing you an episode with the lovely Charlotte Holmes, and we're calling this Exhaling Within Kinship with Charlotte Holmes, and it's because exhaling, taking, having, allowing ourselves to exhale more deeply, more thoroughly, more extensively is a gift. Is a gift, and it shouldn't be a gift. It's something that should be a God-given right to. I'm exhaling now. Whew, I'm letting it all go. It shouldn't be an issue. Shouldn't be a problem. But because of the system that we're in, because of the situations that we find ourselves living and working in and being in, it's difficult sometimes to exhale, to take those deep breaths in, and to make sure we take all that breath out of our bodies, pushing that out. So it was such a pleasure and a joy to speak with Charlotte. Again, this was in February that we chatted, and at this point, Charlotte is pregnant. Surprise. I was so surprised about that. But I'm so glad that we got to talk to each other. So in this episode, we reacquaint ourselves with where we're situated. We're connecting with the land, we're connecting with nature, and we talk about the Race Equity Network for the National Trust. We've mentioned this before with Juanita, and also Charlotte was involved in that. And we look at the current discussion that was going around about, is the British countryside racist or not? Yes, I would think so. I know so. But yeah, we're saying it's not just so simple. It's not black and white. There's nuance. And it's, again, it's work that I'm doing is deconstructing, decolonizing white supremacy culture. And it's not either or thinking. It's both / and. It's all happening all at once. And it's making space to recognize that it is all happening. It's not either or. And having those spaces to have these discussions are so valuable. So valuable. That's why I love the Earthsea Love podcast. And it brings me great joy to bring this episode to you now. Okay, so let's get on. No more chatting from me. Let's jump on in. Enjoy. Catch you later. Bye for now. I just want to know, how are you, first of all?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. Yeah, so I don't know, when we last spoke, I was trying to remember, was it September or August when we did the recording? Maybe it was
I think it was September we did the recording for the Black History Month.
History Month.
Yeah.
So I'm well, but I'm going to have a baby, and I'm going to have a baby. I'm going to have a baby in April. So I don't know
So
if I
you're
knew.
pregnant now?
Yes. So the bump is very present now. So yeah, I probably didn't know when we spoke, or was just finding out.
Congratulations.
Thank
I'm
you.
looking at you because my mum said you can always tell in a woman's face if she's pregnant or not. But I'm thinking, oh, it must be the hair because it's been, because
Oh, it's all tied back. It's my
but
winter hair.
oh yeah, we've been talking about that. It's a good way to protect it.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, so
Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you.
It's not be long.
No, end of April. End of April I'm due.
Oh, that I've had both my babies in April.
Okay.
One is the 2nd and one is the 27th. So you get beautiful babies inside and out during April month.
Excellent.
Guaranteed.
I'll hold you to that.
So has the pregnancy been going okay?
Yeah, it's all gone well, thank you.
Good.
Yeah, it was sort of
Good.
a kind of unexpected. So yeah, it's all gone very well. Usual things. Felt a
Oh,
bit sick in the beginning. Don't
yeah.
feel sick anymore. Getting big now.
Yeah. Oh, well, get all the attention now while you can. Because
Exactly. No one's going to be interested in 2 months'
exactly.
time.
I just wish somebody had told me, because my kids are 12 years in between. So by the time I was having the second one, I'd forgotten, but like, yeah, all eyes are on you now because you're carrying the precious load. And then once it's out of you, it's like chopped liver. No attention. So yeah, enjoy. Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely. Anyhow, sorry, I can't keep you all day chatting. I'm thinking about your time. So thank you so much, Charlotte, for agreeing to be part of the Earthsea Love podcast. And I've been so looking forward to chatting to you. Um, and I think it's because I value you and who you be and what you do. But then also, I am, what do you call it? Not starved, but when you're thirsty for connection with women who share maybe a similar experience, life experience that I do, that looks like me, because I'm in a desert, I would think, where women of color or people of color are. So I so appreciate when I get to connect with such people. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for making this happen.
Yeah. So yeah, I usually start off with asking, let us know, viewers and listeners, where are you situated in the UK? And if you can see any nature where you are at this moment in time.
So I'm in Birmingham, so right in the middle of in the middle of England, and I'm in inner city Birmingham.
Mm.
So there's a lot of buildings around, but we are very spoilt in our city that we have amazing nature as well. So I have my little garden front and back. So if I look out my window, I can see some trees, and I can see one of the parks. I live near two parks.
Mm.
And yes, spring is coming.
Yeah.
Maybe I might be a bit premature at the end of February. We may have a little bit more winter left, but the bulbs are pushing up in my garden. My camellia is coming into flower. I'm worried it's going to get burnt
Mm.
by some frost. But yeah, so I can see nature, I can see the parks, and I have a reservoir nearby as well, which is beautiful, a canal. So
Mm.
yeah, we're well served here in inner city
Good.
Birmingham.
Good. That is good to hear. My son just recently was living in Birmingham. He was
Ah,
completing, well, he was teaching geography and also completing his MA in environmental health. Um,
wow.
so he's graduated now and he's moved back up to Liverpool where he did his first degree. But we happened to be down in Birmingham in December for his graduation.
Mhm.
And I am so pleased that you've said that you are lucky in green spaces, because when we were in the city, it was totally built up. It was brick, it was concrete, it was cars. It was like, oh, no roadworks, so many roadworks it was.
And
And
building sites everywhere.
yeah, and I do see Birmingham from other experiences as being a lot of motorways, or like spaghetti motorways. So yeah, we got lost a few times. So you
I'm not surprised. Our ring roads, I mean, they're terrible. Now, I'm used to them growing up here, but
yeah.
it's a very
Ah,
disorientating city.
so you've always been in Birmingham then?
Yes, well, that's where I grew up. I moved
Mhm.
around a little bit. I left
Mhm.
and studied and traveled and worked in other places. And then
Mm.
I came back in my mid-30s. So I
Okay.
came back about 8 years ago. So
Okay.
this is definitely home. And now I live about 10-minute walk from my family home. So
Oh,
that's really nice. As well as nature,
yeah.
I've got family on my doorstep, which are
That
two really important things.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you on that. I totally agree. And I think I did the same thing, went away, and then once there was a calling, I don't know, back to family, back to what I knew. And also I had a baby in my belly. So that's also a home in pictures sort of device there. But yeah. Okay. All righty. So tell us what I don't like it, but I don't know how we can get to it. The idea of like, what do you do? I'm more interested in who you be, but it's interesting to find out what you actually do in your day to day because it is connected to the British countryside in a way, is it not?
Yeah, but probably maybe a bit more tangentially than some of your other guests. So,
Mm-hmm.
I work for the National Trust, and that's how we met. For the National Trust, I work as a cultural heritage curator. So, in that regards, I support properties to look after their heritage and their kind of cultural offer, and
Mm-hmm.
that can be houses and built heritage, but it can also be their parklands and gardens, which are so a bit of both. And then in
Mm-hmm.
my other job, because I work part time for the trust, I work for Birmingham Museums, and there I work in with their education and learning teams and volunteering teams, so
Mm-hmm.
supporting people to come and access and learn and enjoy their history and their heritage.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of my job. But it's interesting the question you ask about who we may be and our jobs. And I think for me, yeah, that's quite a thing trying to pull those two apart. My identity is so linked often to what I do. But now, yeah, now I'm going to be a mother. I'm starting to think maybe that's time to let some of that go.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
That's really, really, really interesting because, I am a, a maturing woman. And I have spent, it feels like a lifetime identifying with what I do and being
Mm.
wrapped up into that. And then when I became a mother, there was a friction conflict going on about what I did and also being a mother and
Mm.
trying to be the best I could in all those roles. But it didn't work out. It didn't work out. Obviously, I burnt myself out. And to the point that, all foundations were burnt down. So I had to build myself up from who I be, from the
Mm.
inside out. Um, and I am so grateful for that process. And it's still that process of becoming. But I know that nature and having that connection with nature was in that process, was in that practice, and still in that practice.
Mm.
And it's interesting how it was within my professional stuff and the work that I was doing, and also within bringing up the kids and getting them out and walking them. So it's always been there, but I think my eyes have been closed or I haven't been looking at it from fear and I don't know, fear, and also it's not encouraged within society, is it? To be who you
No,
truly are, because there is
no.
such a fear factor in it. Or yeah.
And I don't know about your upbringing, but also, again, I was thinking about this morning when I went for a walk. I don't know, were you encouraged to connect with nature and the land? I always used to play in the garden, always getting my hands dirty. But
Mm,
when I remember telling people I think I was going to go and study archaeology,
mm,
there was only one auntie and uncle who thought that was a good idea because I love to get my hands dirty.
yeah,
That was part of who I be.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
actually, to have a good job, a respectable job, be well presented, you
Hmm.
know, um, those things kind of sometimes can take us away from our true selves in a
Hmm.
way. Because for all sorts of complicated or not so complicated reasons, I can understand it. When you've
Hmm.
been forced to work the land, then maybe your children and as kids deciding they want to go back to make that connection can be difficult for some of our families. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's just joyful to hear about your journey, Sheree. And that just reminded me, yeah, but it's an aspect of my own self, which maybe I need to connect a bit more with.
Yeah. And but there's no hurry. There's no hurry
No.
because that's another thing, isn't it? Rush, rush, rush. Let's go, go, go. So that's another thing of my practice is just taking it slowly.
Mm.
And enjoying being embodied or enjoying the stuff around me through my body and my senses and being aware and being conscious and being present. Yeah. And again, it's a practice, but sorry, I go off on these tangents because I see it as a conversation, and
Yeah.
it's a conversation between me and you, and we might have people looking and listening late. But it's like things come up for me in these conversations. So I'm going to note down because I want to come back to it. But so we've talked, you do connect with nature. You've just been out this morning for a walk. Is that a daily walk?
I would like it to be a daily walk. It's probably every other day walk, but
Oh,
it needs to be a daily walk.
yeah, I hear
Really.
you.
Yeah.
I hear you. Because I was just thinking this morning when I was in the shower. I'm a water baby, but I know I haven't been taking my medicine, which is getting into the sea. And part of that is walking, pace to the sea because it warms up my body. And then I get in, not so cold, not so, woo-hoo-hoo, and then the walk back warms me back up again. So I was just like, when I was in the shower, I was thinking, Sheree, you know what is a matter here. You might be having a shower, but it's a poor substitute for getting into the sea with Mother
See?
Nature. And,
Mm,
I was getting on my case, and then I thought, hold on, offer yourself some grace and compassion,
yes.
because we are living in a world where we weren't supposed to be surviving anyhow. And here I am, I'm surviving and I'm thriving. So I give thanks for that. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So talking about that, we met because we were going to be doing a recording for the National Trust Black History Month conference for their Black, Asian, minoritized, because I don't use minorities, workers. And I was talking to you because you were one of the founding members of the Racial Equity Network. Is that correct? Now,
Yes. Yes.
yeah, thanks. So please, can you tell us what that is, why it was necessary? Because sometimes, we do get that question of like, why do you think it's necessary to create an exclusive group like that? Taking our money and doing it. Oh, I'm not paying my membership for that.
Mhm. Yes, so the network started, I'm trying to remember the date, pre-pandemic. I sort of don't have a great chronology around that period, but yeah, maybe 2018 or 19, we started getting together. And it's I mean, I don't know where, depends where you are in the world or where you are in this country. I'm very fortunate. I'm working in Birmingham. My family is here in Birmingham. So, I'm surrounded by people of color. I go to my local shops. Everybody is kind of different and similar at the same way as in as much as we're global majority. And it feels like that, where I live. But work was so different, So yeah, you could go months and months without ever meeting another person of color professionally. And yeah, that's not great. And that had been my experience throughout my career, really. Even when I was working in museums in other cities. Actually, Birmingham museums is a little different, but in other cities, there's very, very little diversity. And the joy when I came back to Birmingham and I shared an office with a colleague, Nazia, and we just, we had this shared experience, and you didn't have to wear the mask and you didn't have to translate, and you could just exhale, and was so beautiful. And I'm part of various networks which offer that kind of kinship, really, with other people of color. And that was really missing at the National Trust, because the National Trust, out of all the organisations I work with and for, has probably the lowest level of diversity in terms of ethnicity of their staff. So we decided to do something about it, and big props probably to my colleague Nadia this time at the National Trust. And she was really the impetus for somebody called Lucy, and we all got together and decided, well, how can we connect? And just to have that opportunity to exhale and then to talk openly about the issues that we face, and both in terms of the histories that we tell, but also actually just whatever your role, whether you're in marketing or you're working in food and beverage, actually those micro or not so microaggressions that people experience on a daily basis and have just got completely used to. And actually nobody was listening to them or hearing our stories. So to be able to hear each other, to witness, was really important. So that's why it kind of came about. And also helping the organization be the organization it wants to be. We're forever for everyone. So actually, well, what does that mean? And our lived experience of understanding the exclusion that lots of people experience with an organisation like the National Trust, both as an employee or as a visitor, we can't just sit back and not do anything about that. So I'm quite a shy person. I wouldn't always put myself forward, but it came to a point, particularly during lockdown, where it was me, Kerry, and Nadia, and when we're like, if it's not us, then who? We have to do this, and particularly around Black Lives Matter, then it was, this can't continue and we have to do something. So we did, and we formed our network, and we also did lots of more proactive anti-racist network activities within the organisation, as well as just being a space for fellowship and friendship and solidarity.
Oh, lovely. That does fill my heart, the kinship and the fellowship and that space, that taking up space and giving that space to yourself, taking that permission and running with it, basically. Thinking about, so this was behind the scenes in a sense, and some stuff were in the public. If we think about, you're saying, anti-racist activities, and also there was that colonial and slavery report that came out that showed the connection to the houses and the gardens of the National Trust, and how there was a pushback against it within the public. But also, and this wasn't on the questions thing, but last week somebody got in touch from Radio 5 Live and was asking about that report that came out, what was it? And I don't want to, it was from Wildlife and Countryside Link, and that group of 80 organizations, which included the World Wildlife Foundation, RSPCA, and the National Trust. And that it was the idea of providing to Parliament another report, another research thing, that the countryside, the British countryside, is racist, and that it's a white dominated space, and there's barriers, structural, experiential, cultural barriers to people of the globe. And I'm using people of the globe majority because we know within that study they still use ethnic minorities, and if they were listening to us then, but that there's still, these barriers in place for accessing the community. And then somebody from the radio came back and said, no, it's not racist. It's saying it's racist is another barrier and it's stopping us getting out. And somebody from the radio was wanting to hear what I was thinking about it, wanted my opinion. Oh, well, rang me up to test my opinion first, and then, we'll ring you back and see if we want you on live. Yeah. They never rang back. Never rang back. No. Maybe I wasn't as eloquent as I usually were, but no, I was saying it's not that simple. It's not a case of issues of black and white. It is shades of gray. Yeah. I'm not sure there is that space for those nuanced arguments, discussions, conversations. It's like, we're dropping this in, it's blatantly racist, and then everybody piles on, and it's a case of like, no, it's not, and it's not. I mean, yes, it is, and no, it's not. It's not that simple, is it? So I know this wasn't a question that I was going to ask, but I'm thinking about what is the conversation that you're hearing around the countryside being racist, and I'm not here also to pull out those stories. I don't want you to be a victim here and tell me, you know what, this, because I've been on these discussions. I've been talking to the Secretary of State, and it's like, so tell me your issues of racism, and let me collect it, and let me traumatize, re-traumatize you. I'm not going to do anything, but I want to hear it. Do you know? So
Yeah.
I'm wanting to know, because I'm in the creative sector, I'm in the Northeast, I'm talking to people, but you're in Birmingham, you're in the heritage and cultural sector. So what are the dialogues? What are you hearing about? Oh, the British countryside is racist. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I suppose what I'm most hearing actually is, and witnessing and seeing, are people of color, global majority people going out into the countryside and taking up the space, actually. So, of course, there are incidents of racism and prejudice. Um, and often, and as you say, it's complicated often, there's, because we're city people, not always, but often we are.
Mhm.
And when city people go to the country, that can butt up against those two cultures of urban and rural,
Mhm.
and all those things. But I'm just getting a lot of joy of seeing all these walking groups
Yeah.
getting together, seeing more and more on social media,
Mhm.
seeing, and also supported by an organization like the National Trust,
Mhm.
and more an appetite, or maybe there was always an appetite, but if we can get beyond this kind of the polemic, this false polemic of
Yeah.
the culture wars, and
Mhm.
actually, I think people are genuinely interested about the global connections that
Mhm.
the countryside has, and we don't often look at the countryside through that gaze. So one of the properties I'm working with, they'll have a they have a it's the bicentenary of a book
Mhm.
that chronicles all the plants that they have in their gardens.
Mhm.
And about, I don't know if I can remember the statistics, almost three-quarters of those plants came from outside Europe.
Yeah.
So it's so fascinating how they came here,
Mhm.
why they were collected, who collected them, as well as the beauty and joy they bring to all of us when we walk around the gardens, that we plant in our gardens,
Mhm.
but that they have this connection. And I bumped into Corinne Fowler. She lives in Birmingham, and on the weekend, so we're just in another park. And yeah, she has a new book coming out.
Ah,
Again, walks
yeah.
in the British, I think it's in the British, I don't want to paraphrase, in the countryside, but
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
at
yeah.
colonial history. So
Yeah.
it's here. I think people are interested,
Mhm.
um,
Mm.
and we can share it. There's racism in all aspects of society, and we need to
Yes.
address it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
And
we and we
and I
are.
think and I think that's where the report falls down, I think, is that it's talking about in the countryside, um, but not actually addressing the whole system that we're operating in. And it's not just the countryside, it's in the NHS, it's in the education system, it's in the justice system, it's in the prison system. It's the whole fabric of society and culture, which is institutional racist, or yeah, racist. I can't think of another word. And
Yeah.
I don't think it should always be falling on people of the global majority to be raising these issues about racism and becoming more anti-racist. But I do think we are becoming more creative and more effective in raising them, in tackling them. And I think that people getting out in groups is a way of getting around that fear of going out into the countryside and experiencing racism or discrimination or being seen as alien or something as other. Going out in groups is a way of combating that barrier that was there in perception. So I think we've always been getting out in the nature, but now we're finding more effective ways to do it as a group, getting funding to do it, getting some brands to stamp on it. But again, we're doing it on our own terms. Yeah, we might be walking. We might also take out our Caribbean food with us while we're walking. We might take our own beats and we might be dancing, as well as walking out there. Do you know what I mean? So we're accessing it on our own terms. And I think that is a beautiful thing. And if we allowed racism, prejudice, and discrimination to stop us, then we wouldn't be going out there and doing our own thing. Yeah. So,
And and I
so
was just going to say, a lot of us were our maybe parents or grandparents were country people,
hmm
and we've lost some of that, that connection to the land, the
yeah,
ability to grow. So I've
yeah,
still got some of my mommy's cousins, who still are able to cultivate vast amounts of Collaloo somehow from
yeah,
their allotments in inner city Birmingham. They still have the connection, the
yeah, yeah,
ability,
yeah.
and the knowledge. And I think,
Mm,
so there is that. We're taking it back. We're going out into the countryside. The countryside here may not have always been our history or our ancestry. There's always a global connection,
mm,
but yeah, that we kind of, I don't know, we shouldn't forget our ancestors as
yeah,
well, and they're there
yeah.
with us when we connect with connect with nature. And
Totally, totally. I mean, there's a number of things there. I know when my dad came over from Trinidad and Tobago, he left land, he left Larenteel, to come here, but never talked about his home and rural because it was a step up.
yeah, yeah,
When he was in Trinidad and Tobago, he was fed either UK or USA is the way to go. Your dreams are going to be fulfilled. So he came and he made that decision to pack away all all stories, all knowledge, all connection with his past rural in his grip under his bed. Yeah. And
mhm,
let's move forward. And that was moving forward, instilling in us in his kids' education, get your education. And then you made it in this the mother country. Yeah. But it's not that simple. We know it's not. So yeah, but that connection has been lost. And it's a case of like finding ways to remember it. And just recently, this Saturday, I took a group out of women, and they were Nigerian women, and we were walking in this farm, which was farming Galloway, white Galloway cattle, and protecting the peatland. Yeah, they were getting funding to restore it, help with the drainage, and keep the carbon locked in. So to help with the global climate crisis. And but we're walking. Um, but at the same time, we're in the present, we're touching this grass, this purple, what was it called? Purple moor grass. But at the same time, the women were talking about the grass at their own, in Nigeria, in their own village, and how they were using it, and they would be using it for, weaving or dyeing and etc. So it's a case of like what I was seeing was that we were walking on this land, our bodies, but there were so many different layers of culture and
mhm,
heritage and stories that were moving with us by our bodies in the landscape with the peat and all that. And I was just thinking, oh my gosh, it's like, but what was coming through was that connection, that we're all connected. Ultimately, from the beginning and to the end, we are all connected. And I was just loving that synergy, that energy that was flowing between us. So when you're saying there about that global that is already in the landscape, and you were saying about these plants that have been brought here or traveled here, just like our bodies have. Um, that was making me think about that. But then also how we need to explore the full histories of these plants. But then also you're saying that you work in museums and collections, and how items and objects have wound up in our museums and how they got here. I was reading something about bone museums and skulls, and how they were used, measurements to categorize us as races, which don't actually
mhm,
exist. And how there's been some kind of reckoning now. Somehow we need to return these bones, or we need to identify them really and give them their proper burial. So
mhm,
just coming circling around to you and your museums, you're educating people about these objects or their culture and their heritage. And do you find that it's becoming more global, that there's more of these stories that are coming in, or is it as it was as I was growing up? It's a case of like mask from Africa, a gift. Those labels. Have things changed?
yes, I think they are changing. I think, but I do have maybe ambivalence isn't the right word, but we have to understand the museum. We don't have, that's a bit academic way of putting it, but museums come from a particular period and a particular worldview and a
Mm,
way of understanding the world through collecting material culture and
mm,
objects, putting them often in display cases with a label. And fundamentally, I would question, is that the way we, or certainly isn't the only way to connect with our history and our
mm,
wisdom and our knowledge. But assuming we're going to use that methodology
mm,
of, we've got these beautiful civic buildings with objects from all around the world, yeah, there's an absolute things that would have been not would have been let lie in the past are no
mm,
longer being let lie. So museums are now being proactive about thinking about the objects in their collection. Should they have them?
mm,
Is it time to repatriate some of those objects?
mm,
But of course, the power still lies with the museum often, rather than the museum or people or community from where those objects were taken, often through acts of violence and
mm,
conflict. And I think our audiences and people who visit museums are changing as well. So,
mm,
the fact that there was like a museum scene in Black Panther, like people, they come to the museum and they're like, well, where is this from? People have always asked that question, but maybe they haven't really been heard. But
mm,
now we have to acknowledge that and answer that question. So truly,
mm,
where's the object from? What language are we going to use when we're talking about the object, when we're talking about the country, when we're talking about the culture, where
mm,
it's from, and how do we acknowledge how it came into the museum, if it came through violence, and
mm,
how do we go about righting some of those wrongs? So
mm.
I think things are changing in that way. But
Thank you.
we've got a lot of work to do,
Yeah.
I would say, an awful lot of work to do.
Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna wind up here, but I'm gonna just ask one more thing, and it's about, you're saying you are within organizations, institutions where you might not see many people that look like you. So what do you do for your self-care to keep you showing up daily? Because you are on the front lines in many different ways of bringing about those changes that we need to see. That has to be, but that can be tiring. That can.
Mm.
So what are you doing to look after yourself? Have you got some practices?
I think, well, my other day, not my daily walk, my when I can squeeze it in walk, but walking for
Hmm.
sure. I think, and I keep a journal as well, a gratitude
Mm,
journal. So
yeah.
keeping that's always important, and perhaps not my natural default.
Mhm.
So good discipline to have. Um, yeah, I think they would be the main things, trying to, and it's been a useful reminder. Actually, before I got pregnant, I was eating much healthier and I slept better because of it. So,
Mm.
and sleep is the best medicine.
Ah,
And then since I've been pregnant, I've not been able to eat. Well, not been able to. I've just not been eating as well because I've been feeling sick and things like that. So
mm.
eating better, looking after myself, walking, trying to have a gratitude practice. I also did Reiki
Ah,
for many years, finding that way to connect with ourselves, with the universe and
mm.
energy, and that kind of just that exhale you get when you do a practice. Could be meditation or Reiki or anything like that. But as you ask me, I'm reminded that I could probably do those all quite a bit more.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a very useful reminder and
Mhm.
prompt, because yeah, it's very easy just to disappear into the world of what we've got to do, not
Yeah.
who we are. Mm.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm glad you've acknowledged that because, I asked the question, but you've got it all within you. And it's that reminder, hear yourself saying it and playing it back to yourself. And how's that landing? And it's like, oh, right, yeah. Because when you're saying about getting lost in that what we do in that production, for me, it's like a fog. I get lost in the fog. And those practices, the journaling, the Reiki, the exhale, that's what I'm taking from this, the exhale and the gratitude. It is about saying to ourselves that we are enough, we are worthy, we deserve to be here, and exhaling and giving thanks for that, because there's a lot of joy. There's a lot of joy. And if we can lean into that so much more, I feel it helps and supports when we have to lean, or when we're forced into other spaces where it might not be so joyful.
Yes.
or
Yeah.
easy or easy. So I would just like to say thank you so much, Charlotte, for your time, your presence, your grace, your beauty, and also your wisdom. Obviously, your inner wisdom has shone throughout. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Sheree. Yes, thank you for having me. And yeah, wishing you all the best with everything.
Oh, you too. You too.